and welcome back to Manufacturing Matters Jackson, the one and only podcast dedicated to manufacturing in Jackson County.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the conversation we had. I kind of wanted to follow up from the kind of the last thing we were talking about. You were talking about that example with Lomar and having Alexi go out and talk about Drive Jackson, and then those conversations that have come as a result of that. Is interesting talking about the workforce housing, right? So maybe dive a little bit further into that, and kind of how that then relates back into Drive Jackson and some of these bigger initiatives that we're all involved in.
Yeah, I mean, you asked how manufacturers could get involved. I mean, Lomar's kind of showing that there's all these unique ways that manufacturers can be involved with 54 strategies and, coming from the community. I think everybody can see themselves in this plan. And so, if you haven't read it yet, take a look, figure out where you want to plug in. And from a housing perspective, obviously, Accelerate Jackson County, Keith, you're leading the housing coalition. We're having conversations about what do we do with our land bank. And, a land bank is a really powerful economic development tool. Most people think of it as a foreclosure bank, which, is sort of what it's been here. But, people don't know that you can create a TIF once it's in the land bank, and it qualifies for brownfield incentives. And, how unique and creative can we be with some of that workforce housing? So, I think the more people are having those conversations in places like Hanover Horton with Lomar, or out in Grass Lake, or down in Brooklyn, or right here in Jackson, you're seeing this growth happen in Jackson that we haven't seen in years. And I think it bodes well for, not just manufacturers, but our economy as a whole.
Before the show, Misty, we were talking about open positions in Jackson.
Yeah.
I know Michigan Works has a couple, but can you just talk overall, like what that looks like in Jackson right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we recently presented to the county commissioners on Monday, and I had the same question asked, like what is the current number of positions that Jackson County has open? And so as of June, there were 1,300 positions available in Jackson County. The top employers, probably to no surprise, just based on volume of positions, are in the healthcare industry. But then from there, it's retail, it's customer service. We had Technique was actually made the top 10 list. They've got 17 open positions that they're looking to fill right now. And so there's a lot of opportunity. The median wage for Jackson County on the posted positions right now is $24 an hour. So that's a great starting point for some individuals to be able to that sustainable life, right? So yeah, there's opportunity. And if there's skills that are needed for someone to be able to step into those roles, that's certainly where Michigan Works Southeast can help. We also are hiring right now. So we have 2 business services rep positions that are open, one in Jackson County, one in Hillsdale County. These positions work with our employers. They help develop their training plans, connect them to state and federal grants to help offset those training costs, talent recruitment, connection to partners and partner services. I mean, we're talking about workforce housing. That isn't necessarily Michigan Works' mission, but that is certainly something that we want to be at the table with and a support, because it helps our employers and it helps ensure that we have the pipeline necessary to continue here.
Well, and I think those BSR positions, I mean, they're such an important role for the organization, right? Because in many ways, they are the face of Michigan Works to the business community,
yes,
right?
They are.
And so it is a great position, and I'm hoping that this can get shared far and wide, right? And get a great candidate, because we obviously, from our role of going out and talking with businesses, and Olivia's role of going out and spending a lot of time out with our manufacturers primarily, we spend a lot of time with your BSRs, right? We say we again, kind of how much we all interact with each other, and so I hope that you can find a great candidate for that position.
Thank you. Yeah. So anybody listening that knows somebody that's good at building relationships, doesn't mind a little bit of paperwork, because when you're spending state and federal dollars, you certainly have I's to dot and T's to cross. Send them our way. They can check out MWSE.org and how to apply. Directions are there.
Yeah. Well, I would say, yes, please, absolutely. We need strong candidates for these positions. So I would also say, Ryan, when you and I were talking, and I've kind of been following the journey a little bit with what you've got going on with the chamber. You've got some exciting things you're working on right now too, and particularly an award you may be receiving.
Yeah. So at the beginning of June, we found out we are finalists, one of the top 3 for National Chamber of the Year. And
Exciting.
it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's a really rigorous application process. You have to, give them a program or an initiative that you've worked on. Obviously, we use Drive Jackson. We've been tracking the economic impact from Drive Jackson. We talked a little bit on the show about RX Kids and Grow Jackson and Build in Jackson. But, the other part out there that, we haven't talked about is, we talked a little bit about state budget. We got dollars in the state budget that we had advocated for. And so, when you start looking at all those things and the economic impact over the next 3 years, we're looking at over $50 million already in economic impact for these things that are coming out of the strategies in Drive Jackson. We need to keep it going. We need to keep that momentum. But, if we can hit $50 million a year, it's $1 billion in economic impact for Jackson County. So,
That's awesome.
Great.
Congratulations
Yeah.
on that.
And thank you.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
It's awesome.
Olivia's gobsmacked.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I
So
mean, it's
bask in
good.
that light.
And it's always about what's next, right? I mean, with
Yeah.
having these partnerships and having our organizations and others all aligned makes the work easier because we can share in that heavy lifting, and Keith running the housing coalition, and the work you're doing on training people in manufacturing, and what Misty's doing at Michigan Works, and it just helps us drive those things so much more quickly and efficiently for Jackson County, which is why we're seeing this growth here. And honestly, I mean, it's the national recognition the chamber's getting, but it's really recognition for all of Jackson County.
Yeah, it's one word for Jackson County.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
the,
it. Right.
the work. I was talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago, and he said he has friends who are up north or on the west side of the state, and they were texting him and asking him, "What the heck's going on in Jackson? They've got a lot of stuff going right now." And so the state's actually starting to sort of perk up their ears and say, "Hey, if Jackson is doing something, we want to help them get there. We get reached out to all the time. I know ShopRat and the chamber both got reached out to on an upcoming grant that was just submitted, and it was because of the work we're doing. They're starting to recognize that, and so they're happy to help us because of the work that we're all doing.
Yeah, one of my board members has been telling me for a couple of years now, we're better together. And I couldn't agree more, bringing all of the different resources together and working together so that we can just build on each other and support one another and ultimately make Jackson a better place. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And we've got a group who's always trying to get to a yes in these collaborations.
Something else we've been working on together. Misty and I and Ryan, we've made a couple of trips up to Lansing, right? As we work through this community growth fellow opportunity. You mentioned Alexi earlier with the example going out and with going out to Lomar and having that conversation. Maybe talk a little bit about that program and some of that work that we've been doing.
Yeah. So the Community Growth Academy was actually something Keith, Misty, and I, and Monica from the Community Foundation all took part in. And it was part of the state was developing this transition playbook for, if you have a company that closes in your community, and how do you build a resilient economy. And so part of this was having this fellow come in for 15 months. And so Alexi Milliken came to us as she was the former policy and research director at the Michigan Population Growth Office. She's a Jackson native, graduated from U of M with her master's in public policy. And, we've been incredibly blessed to have her here because she's the one who gets to wake up every day while we're doing the work that we're doing in our organizations and thinks about how do we implement Drive Jackson and how do we move the next project forward. And so, Keith, I know she's supporting the Housing Coalition with and the work you're doing with the land bank. Does a ton of research for us and, helps us, both on the Experience Jackson side when we're talking about, that contract with Leo that the city has for the mountain bike trails and, all of those things. And she's, staffing the Workforce Development Collaborative for us. But part of that is we get her for 15 months. What happens next? And so, we actually have created Drive Jackson, a 501c3, and are doing a capital campaign for capacity building. Because what we've seen over the last few years with Lansing is all of these grants, all of these appropriations are all reimbursements now. And so, the concern becomes if you have some smaller nonprofits, they might get an appropriation, but can they actually afford to outlay the cash until that comes in? And so, leveraging that as some capacity building for some of those smaller organizations so that when those dollars come into Jackson, we never send it back. We want to use those dollars here, and we want to make the biggest impact we can with them. So
Smart. Lexi's great, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
She
she's
is.
fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
she's a go-getter, right? I have a high school intern in my office for this summer, and she's been fantastic. And she came back to tell me she had lunch, I think, with Alexi yesterday.
Yeah.
And she came back and was just so excited. And, you need that personality, right, to
Yep.
be able to take an initiative like that because, that breaks down some of those barriers when you're trying to go meet with people that may not, they may just be a little bit standoffish. I'm not sure if I have time to talk about
Yeah.
this or to do it. And so it's been great. So I appreciate that. So.
She infuses enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
She has a lot of enthusiasm, and,
Lot
and
of
is a big
enthusiasm.
reason why we're moving so quickly
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
all those initiatives
It's
in
great.
Drive Jackson. So
That's right. That's right. Well, any last questions or any further thoughts, or is there anything we didn't cover that we wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I think the only thing I would just throw out there is more information's coming, but we are celebrating 10 years as Michigan Works Southeast this fall. So we're very proud of the work that we've done over the last 10 years as the state's workforce development agency for this county. And we're thankful for the partnerships. So more to come
Congratulations.
on that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And-
Yeah.
And I think for me, we still have one slot left in Building Jackson. It's still up to $35,000 in down payment assistance, on a brand new house that's $178,000. And so, if you know somebody in that 18 to 35-year-old range, have them apply to Building Jackson, have them apply to 100 homes. There's, they're starting to creep up on that 100 now. So get in while the getting's good.
Absolutely.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming on Manufacturing Matters Jackson.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yep. We're good.
All right.